Hi everyone, it's Monica, and today I'm going to be chatting through all of the books that I've read in the month of May. The first book that I read in May was Erebus, The Story of a Ship by Michael Palin. So this book follows the story of this ship since the beginning of its construction until the day it disappeared. When you hear a story of a ship disappearing, I think you don't really care about the things that happened to that ship beforehand. Like, if everything ran smoothly before, I don't think that's what you were going to want to read about. It focused so much on the story of the ship before that expedition had gone wrong, and I really hated that because that was just basically naval history, and I didn't care about that. I care about the specific event. So that was definitely my main problem, but I had so many other problems with this book. So it's very, very well researched. The amount of work that was behind this is mind-blowing, but I didn't like, overall, I think what I didn't like was the way this book was edited. For instance, there are pictures here in the book, and they're not in the right place, which I know it's an editing issue, and it happens a lot, especially with nonfiction, but it really, really bugs me because you are not even told that what you're reading has a picture linked to it. You just have to find out that 100 pages afterwards you're gonna find that picture just randomly on a page. And that for me doesn't make sense whatsoever. Also, it read a lot like a textbook. Like, we literally had lists of things that they had, like forks and knives and cups, and I don't really care. So I don't know if this book wasn't for me. I don't know if I was just searching for something else when I picked this up, but overall I think this could have been a masterpiece of research and investigation and stuff like that, but it just ended up being very, very boring because of the way it is constructed. I don't think it's Michael Palin's fault. I think it's the editing process overall. It needed so much more work to be something remarkable. Like, I hate saying this, but I think all of the things that I wanted to know I could have found out like with an hour-long research on Wikipedia, and I would be satisfied. So, having said this, the last 100 pages of this book were amazing. It focused a lot about that last expedition and the crew that disappeared and the efforts that were being made to find them, and that was amazing, but that was 100 pages of a 500 pages book. So, also, there was one thing that I was like shocked at the end of this. And it's the fact that Erebus had a brother ship named Terror, and they went everywhere together. It was literally illegal for them to be apart from each other, so they did everything together. They were constructed around the same time, and they disappeared at the exact same time in the same expedition. So why is this book called Erebus? Because it tells Erebus' story at the same time it tells Terror's story. And actually, some of the bodies that were found afterwards, of course, were from the crew of Terror, so it doesn't make sense to me that this book only focuses on one of the ships, because there were two of them and they fought all of those battles together. So I think it's very unfair for the other ship not to be as recognized as this one. So that was my main issue when I finished it, was like, okay, because I was reading the book and I was seeing that Terror was very present throughout the book. And I was like, okay, this is probably going to go in a direction in which it's only going to be focused on Erebus, but no, it focuses on both ships, so this should be called Erebus and Terror. But overall, I really loved learning about these things. I mean, I was kind of bored, but overall I'm very happy that I've got to learn all of this stuff. So, and again, the research that was behind this is just flawless, so I ended up giving this one a 3 out of 5 stars. The next book that I picked up, I actually picked it up because of a challenge that I made here on a video, so I'll actually link that up there. But that was The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lafleur by Leslye Walton. This is one of the first books that I remember seeing on BookTube and really wanted to read. I think this one and Aristotle and Dante were probably the first two books that I've heard about here on BookTube, and I was like, I need to read that. So it's safe to say that I was very, very excited about this, and I think that was my problem. You've probably heard about this book before, and you've probably heard that it's the story of a girl that was born with wings, and basically it's a generational thing and you get to learn why she's born with wings. I don't agree with any of that. I don't think this tells the story of Ava Lavender, it tells the story of Ava Lavender, her mother, and her grandmother. So it tells a part of 3 different stories. And of course, because there are 3 different storylines, you're going to fall in love with some of them more than the others. And I feel like Ava Lavender's story was actually my least favorite, because the most beautiful story is her grandmother's, and the one I connected to the most was her mother's. So I felt a little bit disconnected with Ava Lavender. But apart from that, I don't feel like this book gives you answers. She was born with wings, yes, but why? She was born with wings, so maybe she's special? Is she? I think it's supposed to be open to the readers to discover for themselves what this book is about and what is the message it's trying to give. But I don't really like that in books, so I think that was my main problem. I was very confused about this one, and also I went into it thinking that it's going to be one of the best written books ever, that it's going to be so whimsical and so beautiful, and the thing is, the story was very whimsical, very magical realism, but the writing was just okay. I thought this was going to be a book that I would tab a lot, but I ended up with 1 tab. I was a little bit underwhelmed with the writing, but overall the story is fine. I just really didn't like the ending, and I think the writing could have been better. I went into this book thinking that I was going to find my next favorite thing, and I didn't, but overall I ended up really enjoying it. I had a good time, and I ended up giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars. Next I picked up Scythe by Neal Shusterman. This book is set in a future time in which humanity has conquered death. So it's basically a utopian slash dystopian story. And I have to say, it's not my thing whatsoever, it's not my vibe, but I ended up really liking it. So basically Scythes are people whose job is to kill other human beings to keep the humanity growth under control. And this book follows the story of Scythe and Rowan. They are 2 teenagers who are chosen to be Scythe's apprentices. When I first heard about the synopsis, I thought that, oh my god, that is probably horrible, they probably hate it, they probably just want to get back to their lives. But the thing is, Scythes are honorable people. The job is honorable. The only way you can become a Scythe and be chosen to be a Scythe is if you don't want to be a Scythe, because that's the only way they can control the Scythedom and basically not have villains just murdering people just because. So I really liked that aspect of the book, and the overall story I really liked, and I ended up finishing this book like trembling with that ending. The ending is so good. I just love this book so much, which is weird because it's definitely not my style. And I ended up giving this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I picked up was In an Absent Dream by McGuire. This is the 4th book in the Wayward Children series. I've read the first 3 books on this series via audiobook and it really worked for me, but for some reason I tried picking this up on audiobook and I just couldn't concentrate, and I don't think it's the book. I think I'm falling out of love with audiobooks, which is awful. But yeah, I just ended up buying it because I love this series so much. I'm trying to slowly but surely collect them all. So I was very excited. Plus, excuse me, they have illustrations. What? Now I definitely want the other ones because I just love this series so much, and the first book is my favorite and I just want to have it in my hands because the illustrations are probably gorgeous. Okay, so sorry, getting back to the story. Basically, in each book you follow a different character and you get to know a lot about each character's world. So in this book we follow Leslye, which is kind of a teacher in that school. So basically this happens before the first book, and we get to know about her world and what happened with her. It's so precious. I love these books, and they're probably one of the most beautifully written books ever. I tapped so much on these books because the writing is just so flawless. But having said that, this is one of my least favorites so far because I don't really like this world. This happens in the Goblet Market, which is a very logical world, and I like more of the darker ones, like the Moors and the Land of the Dead and stuff like that. So this one was not really my vibe again, but overall I liked the story. It was okay. I think the story in this one was a little bit more rushed than the others because these books are novellas. They're very short, they're about 200 pages, so you need to be careful with what you put in the books, because if you put too much, it feels rushed. If you put too little, it feels like something is missing. So there has to be a balance. And with this one, I feel like she tried to put too much in a tiny book. Like, you were told that this character is out of the picture, but who is this character? You're first learning about it. It's a little bit rushed for me. I think it would be better if less things happened, but that's just a personal opinion. Overall, I ended up giving this 4 stars. I love this series and I couldn't recommend it enough. The next one is Importance because I finally finished Hans Christian Andersen's classic fairy tales. I have been reading this book for more than 2 months. I picked this up on a whim, feeling like I would read 1 or 2 stories a day, but then I realized I would be reading this book for months on end. So I was like, no, I need to rush this. And it was really sweet. Most of the stories are so cute, and some of them made me tear up a little bit. It's gorgeous. I really recommend it. I don't recommend you pick this up to binge read like I did, because it gets very tiring, and especially because some of the stories are so long. There are stories in here that are like 40 pages long, and then there are stories that are like half a page. So when you get to a story, if you are reading it like from start to finish, when you get to the next story, you don't know what you're gonna get. You can get like a story that you're gonna be reading for a minute, and a story that you're gonna be reading for an hour. So I don't recommend like binge reading this. Of course, because there are 100 stories in here, I didn't love all of them. I ended up giving 13 stories 5 stars and like 50 stories 4 stars, and then a 1 star, and the rest was 3 stars. It was kind of average when it comes to the rating, but I found some amazing stories in here. Like, my favorite was called The Rose Elf. I am definitely going to read some of them again, and I'm definitely going to be reading some of them to my children one day. In case you didn't do the math, I ended up giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars. And lastly, I picked up Thunderhead by Neal Shusterman, the second book in the Art of a Scythe series. I was very disappointed overall with this book. I'm not going to tell you... Oh, bookmark was on the way. I'm not going to tell you what this story is about, of course, because it's a sequel and it would totally ruin the first book. But overall, I had so much issues with this book. Like, first of all, the writing, it felt like it was written by somebody else. I felt like the writing was so much younger, so much childish, so much more on the younger end of young adult than the other one, which really threw me off of the story a lot. And I think the thing that bugged me the most was the villain. This feels like a cartoon villain. It talks like a cartoon villain, is not very smart, and is always outsmarted by like teenagers. Dude, what are you doing? I think this could have been great. I think the ending is very strong, but like everything happens in the last chapter. Before that, just random things happen here and there. I really felt disconnected from the story in this. And the thing that bugged me the most was that we are introduced to a new character, which is great. The character is great, but its storyline is very not my taste at all. It's very not me, its storyline, but the character itself is great. And because of that, we are focused so much on this new character that we barely have time with our main characters. And I want my main characters, so I want to be with them, not with Grayson. Although Grayson is fine, I prefer the other two, so please, can they come back? I actually wrote some notes, and I never do that because I was just feeling so many things. I need to talk about one thing. It didn't really bug me in the first book, but for some reason it really bugged me in this one. And that's the fact that Scythes choose different names for themselves when they become Scythes, and they normally choose like very important historical figures to be their new names. And what I have to say is, what the hell did Robert Goddard do in his days to be the main villain in a story in the 21st century? Why is Frida Kahlo kind of a bitch. And also, one of the main characters is Honorable Scythe Curie by Marie Curie, which is wonderful. She's my favorite. I love her. But there are also, like, among this story, a site called Scythe Beyonce. And I was like, what? I'm sure that was put in here to make like a comical thing, but I didn't find it comical, I find it stupid because it's supposed to be a very important thing, and you are basically saying that Robert Goddard is a villain, like at least its name is being used as for a villain, but like Beyonce is like a normal side. I don't know why this bugged me so much, but it did. And among all of these things, I ended up giving this book 3.5 out of 5 stars, only because I really love those main characters and I really love the world itself and the way it's constructed. And in here we get to learn a little bit more about the world and it's very interesting, but all of these things bug me so much. Okay, so those were all the books that I've read in May. I ended up reading 6 books, which is more than I normally read, so that was great, but it was overall a very average month. I didn't find new favorites, I wasn't blown away by anything. Let's see if next month is going to be better. But yeah, that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a like and a follow if you feel like it. And please check out my social media. I will leave everything down below for you guys. I'll see you in my next one. Bye!